What up? Welcome to Tales Tomorrow. I am Morrow, your storyteller for today. With me have some more RPG horror stories. Speaking of RPG horror stories, if you didn't know, I do have my very own special email that you can submit your stories to. I do check it on occasion. I do promise you that. I haven't checked that as of late, so I'm sure there has a lot of stories in there, so I need to sit down and go through them as soon as possible. But without further ado, let's get some RPG horror stories for today. Paid Session Flaky DM. Recently, a friend and I joined a campaign on Start Playing. We chose one that's running a module that sounded interesting and met at a great time for both of us. The DM was $20, but I figured that 4 hours a session we were getting at a great deal. The DM was 5 stars and had some positive reviews around roleplay and world building, so we joined. Session 0 starts and the DM quickly runs through the expectations, mentions we'll be using a consent checklist, and asks for players' knowledge around the setting. The session lasts around 20 minutes, with the later 10 being the DM doing any questions. Ask a couple, but realize the other players aren't asking, so stop and wait before asking more. No one does, so the DM ends at session 0. The other players and I stay on for another 2 hours brewing characters. Afterwards, I called my friend and said I liked the clear rules and enjoyed the other players. Then I see that I was charged for this session and asked her to confirm the same. Being charged for session 0 is crazy. You haven't even played the actual session. Like, I get it, session 0, but if you're paying for 4 hours, the DM should still be there for 4 hours, helping with everything. If it ends in 20 minutes, that's not 4 hours. That is a scam. I think you might have gotten scammed. Listen, I understand that paid DMs is not gonna be for everybody. I don't run paid games. I don't really think that most games should be paid unless you're providing like exceptional service, and if that's your business, that's your business. Go for it. You know, a slay queen or whatever you do, get the bag, you know, king, whatever the hell people decide to say it, I don't care. But at the end of the day, if you're not providing the service that somebody paid for, which is 4 hours a session, then you don't deserve to charge them $20 because you only provided 20 minutes. If a DM is actually there helping with character creation for the entire 4 hours and was at the behest of the players for 4 full hours, that'd be one thing. But they weren't. They dipped after 20 minutes and let people make their characters. These things are bad taste in my mouth, as my presumption is that session 0 was free. I'll go back and check the post and see nowhere was it stated, nor was it stated that it would be paid. So I err on the side of caution and assumed that Start Playing norms had changed as previous games. Before taking a break from Start Playing games, the assumption was a free session 0. I personally think that'll be fair. Session 0s is just literally session 0. You're literally putting together the character sheet and going through like the do's and don'ts and stuff. You're going over the expectations, which I think should be free in my opinion. If you can as a DM provide a session 0 for free to make a character, then what are you doing? What if maybe somebody doesn't like the kind of session you're running, or maybe the expectations, something goes against them, or maybe something comes up afterwards and they can't actually officially join the session? Well, there we go. You wasted $20 just to make a character. You don't need to pay $20 to make a character. Anybody can make a character for free. To get charged to make a character after going through session 0 is crazy in my opinion. I understand I should have made assumptions and I should have asked it. And at the end of the day, it's only $20, but I feel like if we were charged, no. $20 is still $20. You could do a lot with $20 regardless. I don't care who you are. I don't care what you do. $20 is still $20. Even if it was like $15, even if it was $10. The whole point is that to charge somebody for a session 0 when it's literally just the prep work and all those 20 minutes and stuff, regardless of how much the game costs, doesn't matter how little, doesn't matter how much, doesn't matter how big or small, money is money at the end of the day. And if you're paying for a non-service, then you're being ripped off. That's my personal mentality. I don't know about you. If somebody says $20 is chump change in a big grand scheme of things, hey, I'll take the $20. I'll gladly use $20 to fill up my gas. Easy. But I feel like if you were charged your session 0, you should stay for the time. It's been 2 weeks now and no session 1 has started. The first time the DM was out of town, and this week he had a last minute personal emergency. Now I want to leave, but I don't know if I'm overreacting. If you want to leave, you can leave. You're not overreacting in the slightest. Listen, being charged for a session 0 is crazy. And if there would be one thing if the DM stayed for the full 4 hours to help make characters and stuff, was there for the full 4 hour session 0, but they were just for 20 minutes to talk about expectations and dip and charge $20 anyway. Insane. That is crazy. Like, if the DM stayed for the full 4 hours and helped you build a character and was there to answer any questions and literally made themselves like fully there and present for the full 4 hours, that'd be one thing. You're actually getting your service, right? You're actually getting a service. You're getting DM as a service. The DM is out for the full 4 hours. Perfectly fine. But this, nah, dude, this just feels like a scam at this point. If you don't want to play, you don't have to play. Honestly, I'll talk to somebody over at Start Playing and explain the situation. Maybe get your money back. I don't know. Anyway, let's continue to the next story. We should kill the NPCs we're supposed to talk to. So this was yesterday, in the first session of a new campaign set in Eberron. The party consisted of me, a Warforged artificer, a kobold barbarian, a human sorcerer, and a problem player. Let's call them Sarah. We're playing the pre-made level 1 adventure for Eberron, where we had to find a Warforged and ask them for information about a crime. Sarah said they were going to be playing a super passive heal bot by their choice, not fight any enemies. Then they proceeded to threaten a bartender over 5 copper pieces, deliberately listen to something NPC whispered to my character after a character talked to people like a normal person, try to arrest and or kill the NPC was supposed to be talking to about crime, said that the character was somehow drunk from drinking ale 3 rounds earlier, said they were role-playing well, they refused to talk to me about it. And I'm worried about how the rest of the game is going to go if they keep attacking NPCs and making excuses. Wow, that's kind of crazy. For a super passive heal bot by proclamation, long proclamation, mind you, this is not passive heal bot behavior. I feel like there's something that needs to be talked about out of game. I feel like Sarah is probably a problem player, or maybe they're just really trying to get into this character. But it's a little bit counterintuitive of them to say, I'm just a super passive heal bot by choice, and then go and do not be a super passive at all. Heal bot or no heal bot. That's, I don't know, man. It feels like a problem player behavior that needs to be talked about out of game with the DM present as well. Y'all need to just have a heart-to-heart and try to hash it out, because clearly, if this doesn't stop, Sarah is probably going to ruin the game for the rest of you guys. I don't know. What are the rest of the players thinking? Do they like Sarah's antics? Are they cool with Sarah doing this? Are they fine with Sarah being more this? Or would they prefer if Sarah just stuck with her initial goal of being a super passive heal bot? I don't think players need to be super passive, but there's a difference between, you know, well cooperating with a party and then cooperating in such a way where it makes problem for the rest of the party. And it feels like Sarah is going to be more of a jam in the machine, if that makes sense. It doesn't make sense. She's not going to be a good fitting cog in the machine if we go by like Warforged and Eberronish kind of like lingo. She's not a good fit in this machine. She's not a good fit of a cog in this machine. If she needs to be a more of a proper fit. Like, I don't care if somebody wants to be like a more, you know, crazier, more boisterous character, but what she's doing right now is definitely a problem play behavior and needs to be addressed out of game. Let's go continue to the next story for today. Why I'll likely never play D&D or any TTRPG again. Hello. If you're reading this post, I want to take a second and say my experience might not reflect your own. You might have a grand experience with D&D, and I'm glad for you. Now, onto the story. Around a year ago, I started playing Dragonlance Shadow of the Dragon Queen with people who I assumed at the time were a group of my friends. For context, we'll call them Del, Anne, Steve, Ire, Marsh, and Yell. Del, Anne, and Marsh are people I played with in a previous campaign that ended when the GM got a new job IRL. Perfectly understandable. Well, Del decided she wanted to run a game for Dragonlance for us. She brought in Steph and Ire. So the new group was Del, the new GM running the game, for Anne, Steph, Ire, Marsh, Yell, and myself. I want to say at first, it was great. The game was something everyone looked forward to in the beginning. However, it started to change around the 28th session. My own real-life situation changed around the time, and I started working a new job. Couldn't make sessions anymore. After some self-deliberation and talk with Del, I decided to leave the campaign. Here's where my horror story begins. Okay, so is the horror story what happens in-game or the horror story that happens out of game? Because from what I'm reading, it makes me think that the horror story happened to after you left. So it's less of an RPG horror story. I mean, I guess it has something to do with RPG horror stories. The theme of RPG horror stories is if it happened within some sort of an RPG, then it's a whole RPG horror story. Even though many of them, well, maybe not many of them, but RPG horror stories are mainly about games that happen during the actual game of actual playing. But there are some stories that sometimes happen where it bleeds outside of the game itself. This feels like it's one of those that bleeds outside of game, but I'm assuming it has something to do with the RPG itself, right? When I told Del that I was leaving the campaign due to the work schedules I have, she suddenly wasn't my friend anymore. She immediately kicked me from Discord, didn't even allow me to say goodbye to anyone, and acted like I was a stranger. I wasn't even going to leave the Discord. Aha! Something smells rotten. I don't know what it is. Something smells rotten. When I read that sentence, something just smells. It feels like we're missing a huge chunk of context. There's something you're not telling us, is there? Something else was said that forced your friend to kick you out of the Discord and not become your friend. Something else happened there, definitely. You've probably went a little bit of an extra line or something, or some sort of an argument, a spat or something, and you crossed the line. That must be it. Or maybe you were the one that left the Discord. Nobody kicked you out. Something definitely happened. I don't know, man. I feel like something is going on here. Suddenly everything is great. It's awesome. Fortunately, can't be part of the campaign and stuff, and I have to leave. And suddenly they just kick you out. And you want me to believe that you're just being removed and have you completely be crossed out of the friends group and everything just because you said you couldn't make it to the campaign because of work scheduling issue? That is crazy. There's something else going on that we're not being told. 100%. Now, many of you GMs might think that's perfectly logical. No? You don't want someone who is in the campaign in your Discord, right? No? Well, that doesn't apply to Dell. She allowed people who played only one session as guest characters to remain in Discord, which is why it's really suspicious that you're pointing this out. You're pointing this out specifically, which means something 100% happened. You said some things, or you said some things in such a rude way that you crossed the lines with the DM, and maybe you were the one that left. You were never kicked, but you left. Something is wrong here. Something definitely happened. If your DM allows people that are no longer paid to stay in a Discord, that just means you did something. That just puts more of a blame on you than anything else. I do not believe anything else you're saying anymore. It makes me distrust you. Oh my god, this is crazy. People who would never play again. Wait, it gets worse. Not only did she do this, but also try to talk with other people who were in a group, my supposed friends, and none of them responded to any of my messages. It really threw me for a loop. Okay, you clearly did something. You said some things that made people not want to respond to you. You crossed some lines, 100%. I can't imagine anybody just not doing this. You did something. What did you do? Before leaving, I even asked if he could regulate the schedule we usually play. When the campaign first started, it was every Tuesday. Then it became a workaround to get as many people in the session as possible. Mind you, Dell changed the game to fit anyone who needed it. Stev and Ann were accommodating this way regularly. I didn't mind shifting my schedule for them if it meant to go to play with my friends. Up until my job change, I didn't miss a session and adhered to the week schedule. When it was time for other people to maybe shift their schedules around so I could play, oh, that was like a nail in a coffin. Dell told me in a few words that it wasn't going to happen. Okay, no. 100%. Something happened. Maybe this is the point of the story. Maybe this is the point of the story where something actually happens. Maybe you basically just asked like, hey, can we change it to bend around? And it said, sorry, we can't. Right now, it just wouldn't be work out for the rest of the people. It won't work out for Steven. And because they got this schedule and everything, sorry, man, we literally can't switch around. And then you probably blew a gasket. You probably blew a gasket and said something. I don't want to necessarily say though, Pete did something horrible, but I mean like nobody just removes you from a Discord unless they're being a complete jackass about it. But if Dell is so accommodating to everybody else, why would they suddenly not be accommodating to you? It just doesn't make sense to me unless you did something that crossed Dell and pissed them off. That's the only thing I can think of. I can't think of anything else. After that, I decided to leave. Wait a minute. I thought you were kicked. I thought you were kicked from the party. I thought you kicked from the Discord. Nobody responded. And you saying now you decided to leave instead. What is the truth here? What is actually the truth going on? I am so bewildered by this. At this point, I wasn't angry or upset. I thought I was friends with everyone still. I thought maybe I could catch the next campaign. Nope, suffice to say, I was taught a simple truth about D&D and TTRPGs in general. That people you play with aren't your friends. I call BS on this story. You've done something. You probably said some things, or maybe you got so pissy and annoyed that they literally couldn't change the schedule around, which yeah, sucks. Getting a new job sucks. Getting your schedule changed around sucks. I always have to change around some things for my friends. While I'm a little bit more flexible than my friends are, the rest of them that are exactly on a very stringent clock sometimes can't make it to sessions. We have to postpone sessions, or they just can't make it. We have to catch them up later. It happens. Work schedule sucks. Scheduling is the biggest killer of any D&D games and D&D in general, and really any RPGs in general. Like scheduling just sucks. Is the biggest end boss ever. However, if your DM Dell was so accommodating to the other players, I'm sure they were trying to be as accommodating to you as well. It just kind of sucks that your schedule changed around. You simply couldn't join part of the campaign, and then you probably blew a gasket, blew off a lid, and started going after Dell and said some things that caused Dell to just now want to talk to you. You probably said some really messed up stuff or gaslit him or something. Maybe you did the same thing for the other players too, which is probably why they're not responding, because you said a couple of things here that don't really line up together. One is that you were kicked. You just removed from Discord and nobody contacted you ever again. But here you're saying in this story, at the end here, that basically you left the Discord and you were mad at them. And then your whole lesson from it, the whole morality of this is you're taught a simple truth according to your words about D&D and TTRPGs is that people you play with aren't your friends. I call BS. There are so many people out there that maybe I don't play D&D with personally. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure you guys also have yourselves people that you have people within your D&D circles or TTRPG circles and people outside of your circles. And regardless of what it is, some people, yes, you get to know only through TTRPGs, but other people you meet because you're already friends with them, you decide to play TTRPGs already. This particular point you're trying to put in has nothing to do with whatever you're doing. I think this is a deflection. This is a deflection towards something else going on. You're blaming this onto the fact that, quote unquote, your simple truth by TTRPGs is that people you play with aren't your friends. When something else happened, you're deflecting to this specific point. When something else happened and you probably messed up bad, you probably said some things that were crossing the line, that were out of line. And now you're basically just trying to deflect onto, well, people in TTRPG just suck, I guess, instead of trying to take accountability for something you've done. Now, I don't know what OP has done. I really have no idea, but I imagine it will probably take quite a bit to not only, like, you know, lie about two super circumstances, or maybe you're misremembering, I don't know, but to also go in this big ass complaint simply because the scheduling sucks. There's literally nothing they can do. And your whole point is, simple truth about D&D is that the people you play with aren't your friends. I think there's something on with you here, not necessarily for the people you play with. Now, there could be a possibility, a very rare chance, that maybe the people you play with, they just suck and they're never your friends in the beginning. Never friends in the first place, you just play fun with them, but otherwise they just never contact you in Discord, never talk to you, never hung out with you and stuff. And I've been in those groups. You know what those are called? Those are called raiding groups on Final Fantasy 14. I've been in raiding groups where nobody's my buddy, nobody's my friend. I'm simply just showing up, you know, we're acquaintances, but otherwise they literally don't talk to me and don't communicate with me, and I don't communicate with them back, and it's all understandable, right? We just literally raid together for once or twice a week, and then we just never interact. You know, we work well together, but otherwise we don't really chat. And then I've been also in friend groups where I do raid with people that are my friends that I talk to outside of the game. And you know what? Both groups work out. Both groups are fine. You don't have to have people that you do stuff with, like in a D&D group or in a Final Fantasy raid, to have to be your friends. You can make it so that you basically just become like raid buddies, or you become D&D buddies or TTRPG buddies. But the question comes here is whether you did something to cause this reaction, to cause this effect to happen, and this is just the deflection, or maybe the people you've been with aren't really friends in the first place. I'm leaning towards that they are friends, but you crossed some lines and said some things that probably are not okay to say in polite company, and therefore now you're basically deflecting onto people that play D&D with aren't your friends at all, instead of finding out the reality that, yeah, scheduling sucks, and sometimes people just literally cannot make scheduling happen, even though they're trying their very best. Everybody's trying their best, you know? Scheduling sucks for everybody, not just you, but your DM as well. And sometimes some scheduling just simply just does not work out in the slightest, and it sucks, dude. It just sucks. However, in this post, you're not even blaming scheduling. You're blaming particularly the people involved. You're saying everybody that plays TTRPGs with, they suck, which I feel like is a massive deflection. It stung when I realized I didn't have a modicum of value to any of these people. People I played with every week and hung out with in between games on Discord. So you play with them every week and you talk to them, hang out with them on Discord, and you have played, what, 28 something sessions together. I refuse to believe this is just people that were never your friends with. I think that you decide to blow a gasket, threw a tantrum, crashed out, as the kids like to say in modern day dumbass lingo, and then you cross the line and you basically dipped out because people were literally like, sorry man, the scheduling stuff is rough. I'm so sorry. We can't exactly accommodate for now. If things improve, maybe later. But simply because of scheduling, you decide to blow it off onto the people you play with, and you blaming them and deflecting and saying that they suck because they couldn't bend over backwards. And listen, yes, slight schedule adjustments can be doable for anybody, but if it's like a massive schedule adjustment where we have to shift the entire day that doesn't work for anybody else, it sucks, man. It sucks, and I'm sorry that is going on with you. I'm sorry that you got to deal with this new schedule change and everything. I know it sucks. It's awful. It's terrible. But hear me out. I don't think you should be deflecting and blaming it onto the people that you play with and the specific your friends just because of this one thing. Writing off your friends because of this one thing, because of this one issue, I don't think it's going to be a good thing. You physically writing your friends off here. Now, guys, I could be wrong. People watching the video, I could be entirely wrong, and maybe the people that the OP is talking to are actual horrible a-holes and stuff. That could be a great possibility. But considering the OP kind of lied in the beginning and towards the end of the story, I feel like there's something that is not being said. There's a silent part that is being silent and it's not being said out loud. And I would love to hear if anybody in, any feedback in the comments was one of the other players that responded. Maybe somebody can give us more context for it. Who knows? I'll honestly never play D&D again or any TTRPG. After much time thinking about it, I don't see how I can enjoy the game anymore after dealing with this. I always question the people I'm playing with. Feel free to leave comments, but I won't read or respond to them. I don't feel like dwelling on this anymore, and with this post, I'm leaving TTRPGs behind me. This last part, these last couple of sentences, it may sound mean, But you know what? I'm a tiefling that doesn't really care too much about it. These last sentences just make me feel like no matter what I say will not be listened to whatsoever. So there's no point of giving you, OP, any kind of feedback. I will, however, take my time to finish my thought process here. I feel like the problem isn't your friends. I feel like it's you. You've done something specific. You crossed the line and you decide to write yourself out of everybody else's lives. And you could have stayed in Discord, but you chose to leave. And now you're deflecting and blaming everything else on everybody else instead of the unfortunate issue that is scheduling. Man, scheduling sucks. And I'm sorry that you have to go through that. I'm sorry you can't play with your friends right now. But to blame it on your friends and saying they all suck because they can't bend over backwards for you, I think it's unreasonable and unfair. What you're doing right now is you're the one writing the friends out of your life. Then are the ones writing you out of your life, and you decided to leave everything instead of just stay in the Discord and just be part of everything going on there. You yourself said at first in the beginning of the story, you said you were kicked, and now you're saying towards the end that you left. I already do not trust what you're saying because I feel like there's a lot more things you're not saying that you should be saying. If you ever at all watch this video, maybe have a little bit of self-reflection and really think about, is this really what you want to do? If you really want to leave your friends out and just completely stop talking to them simply because they couldn't accommodate this unfortunate scheduling issue that you're currently dealing with, I really consider about it, because right now what you're doing is you're writing people out of your life over this scheduling issue, and you're blaming everything, deflecting onto friends suck because they're playing TTRPGs and all TTRPGs suck and therefore I'll never play TTRPGs ever again. You're blaming everything but yourself onto everything going on. Before you start blaming everything else, I would really reflect about if there's something you could have done to not lose your friends. That's all I can really say. Judging by your last sentence, you're not gonna look at feedback or respond to it, but I really hope you do come back and read some of it and actually consider about what people have said, because there's a lot of comments in here that specifically said like you probably should reflect on it and you probably need to do something about it. Maybe I'm wasting my breath saying this, but you know what? I want to speak my mind, and that's what I'm doing. Even though you may not look at feedback or read feedback yourself, OP, I still want to make sure that I can talk about it. And you know what? If you guys have your own feedback as well, put it in the comments below. Unlike OP, I will actually read it. And with that, that's going to be all our stories for today. I want to thank you very much for watching, and thanks so much for being here. If you like what I do, consider subscribing to the channel and leaving a like. Also, if the RPG Horror Stories ever goes down, or if you want to submit your own personalized horror story, email is down in the description below. I'll see you again in more Tales Tomorrow. Bye-bye.